Hello, everyone, and welcome to our channel, The Audible Review. We are diving deep today into Bryan Magee's powerful memoir, The Confessions of a Philosopher. And this really isn't a textbook, is it? It's more like Magee walking us through his own life, his own, deeply personal journey, wrestling with these huge questions about existence, morality, where meaning actually comes from.
It's true. And, it gives you this surprising amount of intellectual comfort, almost, not just academic confusion, which you might expect. So our mission for you, the listener, today is really to pull out Magee's core idea that philosophy's real value, well, it isn't always in giving final, neat answers. It's more about helping us ask better questions, sharper questions. It's basically a guide to living a more awakened life, intellectually and morally.
Okay, let's unpack that, starting with what he calls the joy of wondering. His primary lesson seems to be that this search for truth, it just never stops. It never actually ends. He frames philosophy as fundamentally a kind of loving the chase itself. The constant questioning, trying to see the world differently, realizing the journey matters more than the destination.
Right. And what's really interesting is how he connects that constant search back to us, back to our own lives, our daily behavior. Magee makes it quite clear that curiosity, that's really the beginning of wisdom. It forces us, or should force us, to challenge our deepest assumptions, the ones we just picked up somewhere without really thinking. Philosophy gets personal right there, when you see it shaping your choices, your doubts, even your hopes. For Magee, if you stop asking questions about your own beliefs, you kind of stop living philosophically.
Yeah. And that brings us to a really crucial point in his thinking, the boundaries of reason. Magee argues quite forcefully, actually, that pure logic, cold reason, it just has limits. And it's vital that we recognize them. We can analyze the physical world, sure, but logic kind of falls short when we try to grasp essential human things like love or morality or that feeling you get from beauty.
Yeah, and that raises a huge question, doesn't it? Especially against sort of modern scientific thinking. If reason has its limits, what else is there? What do we rely on for the rest of reality? Magee seems to suggest that truth is just bigger than what logic or empirical data alone can contain. And that, well, that naturally opens the door to intuition, maybe even faith. He's really teaching critical thinking in its purest sense. Know where logic works, but also know where other ways of understanding have to take over.
But isn't there a danger there? Relying on intuition sounds a bit like wishful thinking, maybe. How does he stop it from just making things up because logic stopped?
That's a fair point. But he grounds it, I think, in intellectual honesty. Magee isn't saying just, take blind leaps. Instead, he sees intuition and emotion as real data points. Primary data about being human that reason just can't fully dissect. Think about sorrow, for instance. Logic can map brain activity, sure, but it can't measure the feeling of grief itself. That feeling, Magee insists, is a truth, even if logic can't process it neatly.
Okay, I see. That leads us perfectly then to what might be the most profound takeaway, this idea of synthesis. Finding wisdom between belief and doubt. He engages really deeply with things like Christian philosophy, for example, not as a dogma to defend, but as part of this huge, universal human search for meaning.
Exactly. He ultimately shows us that wisdom often lies right there, in that middle ground, that balance point between believing and doubting. In his view, faith and reason, they aren't actually enemies locked in some eternal battle. They're more like companions, two different tools, or lenses maybe, both pointing towards something bigger than us, helping complete the picture of reality.
Reading Magee, it honestly feels like sitting with a really wise and refreshingly honest friend. Someone humble enough to say, look, I don't have all the final answers, but disciplined enough to just keep asking the important questions. So what does this mean for you listening? Well, the provocative thought maybe to take away from this deep dive is this. Are doubt and faith truly opposites? Or could they actually be two essential sides of the same necessary truth? Do you like, share, and subscribe to or channel The Audible Review?